November 8, 1943. 27,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. The B-17 shuddered as flak burst below us, black flowers blooming in the thin air where men and machines turned to statistics. Through the plexiglass nose of Memphis Belle II, I could see the other fortresses in our formation. 19 bombers that had started this mission as 27. The missing 8 had gone down over Belgium, torn apart by German fighters that swarmed us like angry hornets the moment we crossed into enemy airspace. I was the bald turret gunner. The worst job on a B-17, some said. Maybe they were right. My world was a 3.5-foot diameter sphere of aluminum and plexiglass, suspended beneath the bomber's belly. So cramped, I had to remove my parachute just to squeeze inside. 2 50 caliber machine guns pointed forward between my knees, a computing sight that supposedly helped me lead targets, and 360 degrees of visibility that let me watch everything that was trying to kill us. "Bandits! 6 o'clock low! Tommy, you got eyes on them?" Lieutenant Morrison's voice cracked through the intercom, tight with the kind of fear that every bomber crew learned to live with. We'd been over Germany for 47 minutes. The ball turret's rotation motor whined as I spun around, searching for the fighters Morrison had spotted. There, 4 of them, Messerschmitt Bf-109s, climbing hard from below, their yellow nose spinners catching the November sunlight. They were using the sun to mask their approach, a tactic as old as aerial combat itself. Smart, professional, deadly. My hands found the gun controls without conscious thought. 7 months of combat had burned the motions into muscle memory. Thumbs on the firing buttons, feet on the rudder pedals that controlled the turret's rotation. The computing sight humming as it calculated speed, distance, deflection. The lead 109 opened fire at 800 yards, too far for accuracy, but German pilots had learned that spraying a bomber formation with cannon fire often made crews flinch, break formation, become vulnerable. Our formation held. We'd learned that lesson over Bremen, over Hamburg, over Regensburg. Break formation and you die alone. I waited, every fiber of my being screaming to return fire, to do something, anything except sit in this tiny sphere while a German pilot tried to kill me. But ammunition was limited. Every burst had to count. Every shot had to mean something. 600 yards, 500, the N-109 growing larger in my sight, its engine cowling filling the computing glass. I could see the pilot now, just a shape behind the armored windscreen, but I imagined him the same way I imagined myself. 23 years old, scared, determined, doing a job that required precision in the face of chaos. 400 yards. I pressed the firing buttons. The twin 50s roared to life, their recoil shaking the entire turret. Spent casings ejected into a collection bag beside my right leg, tinkling like brass rain. Through the gun smoke and tracer streaks, I watched my rounds walk across the 109's wing route, stitching a line of impacts that sparkled in the sunlight. The German fighter shuddered, rolled left, but it wasn't a maneuver. It was the beginning of a death spiral. I'd hit something critical. Fuel line, control cable, maybe the pilot himself. The 109 spun away, trailing smoke, and I didn't watch it fall. Couldn't afford to. 3 more fighters were still coming. "Good shooting, Tommy!" Morrison again, but I barely heard him. The second 109 was already firing, its cannon shells walking up the formation toward our bomber. I could see them, bright flashes like camera bulbs getting closer, 30 feet, 20, 10. Then they were past us, hitting the B-17 flying at our 4 o'clock. I watched in helpless horror as the fortress named Yankee Doodle took hits along its fuselage. Fire bloomed from the number 3 engine. The bomber dropped out of formation, beginning that terrible descent that meant 9 men were about to make impossible choices: bail out over Germany and become prisoners, or ride the burning plane down and hope for a miracle. I wanted to look away, wanted to close my eyes and pretend I hadn't just watched friends begin their journey to death or captivity, but I couldn't. because the second 109 had pulled up from its attack run and was coming around for another pass, and if I didn't stop him, Memphis Belle II would be next. The turret motors whined as I tracked him, leading the target, accounting for his speed, my speed, the wind, the altitude, the 1,000 variables that separated a kill from wasted ammunition. The computing site helped, but it was just mathematics, cold numbers that didn't account for the human element, the way a pilot might jink left when you expected right, might break off when you expected commitment, might accept death when you expected survival. I fired, a 2-second burst, 40 rounds between both guns, each one a half-inch diameter piece of copper-jacketed lead traveling at 2,800 feet per second. The fighter flew through my cone of fire like a moth through a candle flame. This time, I saw the hits clearly. The 109's canopy exploded in a spray of plexiglass. The fighter snap-rolled right, completely out of control, and I knew I'd killed the pilot. Knew it with the same certainty I knew my own name. That burst had found the cockpit, and whatever remained of the man inside was no longer capable of flying. The 109 fell away, tumbling end over end. I watched it for 3 seconds before forcing my eyes away, searching for the remaining 2 fighters. Professional detachment, that's what the training had tried to teach us. Don't think of them as men. Think of them as targets, as threats, as problems to be solved with bullets and geometry. But I knew better. Knew that every fighter I shot down carried a name, a family, a girl back home who would receive a telegram. Knew that the man in that 109 was probably as scared as I was, had probably kissed his mother goodbye before climbing into his aircraft, had probably believed he was fighting for something worth dying for.
War didn't care about any of that. War only cared about who pulled the trigger first. "Tommy, check your ammunition." Sergeant Kowalski's voice, our flight engineer stationed at the top turret behind the cockpit. He'd been flying with me since training in Texas, and he knew that in the chaos of combat, it was easy to lose track of how many rounds you'd expended. I glanced at the ammunition counter. 380 rounds remaining between both guns, out of an initial load of 500. I'd fired more than I'd thought, but we still had 2 hours to target, 2 hours back, and the Luftwaffe wasn't done with us yet. The remaining German fighters broke off, diving away toward the cloud layer below. We'd hurt them badly, 1 confirmed kill, 1 probable, and they'd only managed to knock down a single B-17 from our formation. But the formation was what mattered. As long as we stayed together, concentrated our defensive fire, we had a chance. Alone, separated, a B-17 was just target practice. "Bombardier to crew, IP in 10 minutes. Clear your guns and watch for fighters on the bomb run." The initial point, where we'd begin our final approach to the target. For the next 5 minutes, we'd have to fly straight and level while the bombardier lined up his Norden sight. No evasive maneuvers, no jinking to avoid flak, just steady flight while every German gun crew in Schweinfurt tried to shoot us out of the sky. This was where ball turret gunners earned their pay. While the rest of the crew focused on the bomb run, I'd be watching below, where German fighters loved to attack, coming up from underneath where a B-17's defensive fire was weakest. The ball turret had been designed specifically for this, a human eyeball with guns, suspended beneath the bomber's belly, capable of engaging threats that the waist gunners and tail gunner couldn't see. But that design came with a cost. If we took damage and couldn't retract the turret, if the landing gear failed or the hydraulics died, I'd be crushed against the runway when we landed, flattened between 30 tons of aluminum and the unforgiving ground. I tried not to think about that, tried to focus on the job, on watching for fighters, on calculating firing solutions, on staying alive for the next 3 hours. The flak started at exactly 5 minutes to target. German 88mm guns, the same weapons that made their tanks so deadly, turned skyward and firing proximity-fused shells that exploded in black bursts of shrapnel. The bursts created a box barrage, a 3-dimensional zone of death that we had to fly through to reach our target.
The B-17 bucked and shuddered as flak exploded nearby. I could hear fragments hitting our aircraft, a sound like hail on a tin roof. Each impact made me flinch, made me wonder if this was the one that would find something critical, a fuel tank, a control cable, an oxygen line, me. "Bomb bay doors open." Morrison's voice, steady despite the flak. Good pilot. Farm boy from Iowa who'd never been in an airplane before joining the Army Air Corps. Now he was flying 30 tons of bomber through a storm of steel and fire, and his voice never wavered. Through the ball turret's plexiglass, I could see the bomb bay doors swing open directly above me. Beyond them, I could see our bombs, 12 500-pounders, hung in neat rows, waiting to fall on the ball bearing factories below. Schweinfurt, one of the most heavily defended targets in Germany. The factories here produced bearings for tanks, aircraft, and submarines. Destroy them, and you slowed Germany's entire war machine. "Fighters, high at 2 o'clock." Kowalski's warning sent my hands to the turret controls. But these fighters weren't attacking us. They were going after the lead bomber, trying to disrupt the formation's aim. 3 Focke-Wulf 190s diving out of the sun, their cannon fire tearing into the lead ship's wing. I watched the lead bomber shudder under the impact, watched as its bomb bay doors closed, mission abort for them, and watched as it dropped out of formation, trailing smoke. Our formation closed ranks. The deputy lead took over. The bomb run continued. 30 seconds to release. The longest 30 seconds of my life, every time. Hanging beneath the bomber in my glass and aluminum sphere, watching German soil rotate slowly below me 27,000 feet down, wondering if this was the mission where my luck ran out. 20 seconds. A burst of flak exploded so close I could see the orange center of the detonation through the black smoke. The concussion made my ears ring even through my leather helmet. Shrapnel pinged off the turret's armor plate, thin aluminum designed to stop machine gun bullets, not heavy flak fragments. 10 seconds. I could see Schweinfurt clearly now, the factories, the smokestacks, the rail yards, and I could see the people running, tiny figures scattering through the streets, civilians who worked in those factories, who lived in the houses nearby, who would die or survive based on how accurately our bombardier had calculated wind speed and altitude and drift. I didn't let myself think about them. Couldn't. If I started thinking about the people below, the women, the children, the old men too old to fight, I'd hesitate. And hesitation in combat was death. "Bombs away!" The B-17 lurched upward as 6,000 pounds of high explosive left the bomb bay. Through the ball turret, I watched them fall, 12 dark shapes tumbling toward the earth, spinning slightly, growing smaller as they accelerated through the thin air toward terminal velocity. Then the flak caught us. The shell must have exploded within 50 feet of our aircraft, close enough that the concussion felt like a physical blow, like someone had punched the entire B-17. The ball turret rang like a bell. My head snapped forward against the computing site, and I tasted blood where I'd bitten my tongue. "Damage report." Morrison's voice, urgent now, the farm boy calm cracking slightly. The responses came in quickly. Waist gunners, okay. Tail gunner, okay. Radio operator, okay. Top turret? No response. The intercom crackled with static. "Kowalski, do you copy?"
Nothing. Just static, and the roar of the engines, and the whistle of wind through holes that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. "Tommy, can you see the top turret?" I rotated the ball turret, trying to get a visual on Kowalski's position. What I saw made my blood run cold. The plexiglass dome of the top turret was shattered, and I could see damage to the fuselage around it. Structural damage, bad damage. "Top turret is hit. I can't see Kowalski." "Morrison, this is Navigator. We're losing hydraulic pressure. Number 3 engine is running rough, and I've got a fire warning light on number 4. The situation was deteriorating fast. We'd been hit harder than I'd thought. One engine damaged, another maybe on fire, hydraulics failing, and our flight engineer possibly killed. And we were still deep over Germany with hours to go before reaching Allied lines. "Pilot to crew,
We're staying with the formation. Monitor your stations and report any fighters. Navigator, give me a heading home." Morrison wasn't panicking. Good. A panicking pilot killed everyone. We needed calm, needed professionalism, needed to treat this as a problem with solutions rather than a death sentence. The formation turned southwest, leaving Schweinfurt behind. Below us, smoke rose from the factories we'd hit. Mission accomplished, at least for those of us who survived to make it home. But I wasn't thinking about the mission. I was thinking about Kowalski, about the static on the intercom, about the way the top turret's guns had stopped firing. "Tommy, I need you to come up and check on Kowalski." Morrison's voice, quiet, almost gentle. We both knew what that meant. Climb out of the ball turret, squeeze through the narrow fuselage, and find out if my friend was alive or dead. The ball turret retraction motor whined as it rotated me into position to exit. The hydraulics were damaged, but still functional, barely. I popped the hatch and squeezed up into the fuselage, my legs cramping for 4 hours in the turret's fetal position. The waist gunners were at their stations, faces pale behind their oxygen masks. They'd seen the hit too, knew what I was about to find. I made my way forward through the fuselage, stepping over ammunition boxes and equipment, moving carefully in the thin air at 27,000 feet. One slip, one moment of hypoxia, and I'd pass out, die from lack of oxygen before anyone could help me. Kowalski was slumped in his seat, the top turret's guns pointing uselessly at the sky. Blood covered the inside of the turret, frozen in the -40-degree temperature. His oxygen mask had been torn away by shrapnel, and his eyes were closed. I checked for a pulse, knowing I wouldn't find one, knowing that my friend, who taught me how to play poker during training, who'd shared his mother's cookies in the barracks, and who'd promised to show me his hometown of Chicago after the war, knowing he was gone. "Morrison, Kowalski is dead. Top turret is out of action." "Copy that, Tommy. Get back to your station." Professional. Detached. We'd mourn later, if we made it home. Right now, we had to focus on survival, had to get this shot-up B-17 and its remaining crew back to England. I squeezed back into the ball turret, back into my tiny sphere of aluminum and fear. The formation was crossing into France now, but we were losing altitude. Number 4 engine had been shut down and feathered, and number 3 was running so rough I could feel the vibration through the turret. "Bandits, 4 o'clock level!" The tail gunner's warning sent adrenaline spiking through my system. More fighters. A B-17 losing altitude, smoking, struggling. We were exactly the kind of target German pilots dreamed about. An easy kill. But they'd made a mistake. They'd come from 4 o'clock, which put them perfectly in my firing arc. 6 Focke-Wulf 190s this time, flying in a loose formation. They'd probably been held back specifically to attack damaged bombers on the return flight. Smart tactics, but tactics only worked if you survived to complete them. I rotated the turret, tracking the lead fighter as he began his attack run. The computing site hummed, calculating. My thumbs found the firing buttons. Everything else fell away. The cold, the fear, the pain of cramped muscles, the image of Kowalski slumped in his turret. There was only the target, only the geometry of interception, only the moment of truth. 400 yards, 350, 300. I fired. The twin 50s hammered, their recoil shaking my entire world. I walked my tracers across the lead fighter's engine cowling, saw hits spark along the propeller hub, saw the fighter's nose dip sharply as the engine seized. The pilot tried to recover, tried to pull up, but he'd lost too much energy. The FW-190 fell away, trailing smoke, and I was already tracking the second fighter. This one was smarter. He broke hard left, trying to get out of my firing arc, but I had anticipated that, had already rotated the turret to lead him. When he rolled out of his brake, I was waiting. 3-second burst, 120 rounds between both guns. Half of them missed. The fighter was jinking now, had seen what happened to his wingman. But the other half found their mark. The FW-190's canopy exploded. Smoke poured from behind the engine. The fighter rolled inverted and dove away. "Two down! Tommy, you magnificent bastard! Two down!" The tail gunner screaming over the intercom, but I wasn't celebrating. The remaining 4 fighters had seen their leaders fall and were pressing their attack from multiple angles, coming at us from left and right simultaneously, trying to overwhelm our defensive fire. The waist gunners opened up. I could hear their 50s hammering above me, could see spent casings falling past the ball turret. Tracers crossed the sky in every direction, a deadly fireworks display at 25,000 feet. I rotated the turret left, picked up a fighter attacking from below, the blind spot most B-17s had, the reason ball turret gunners existed. He was already firing, his cannon shells walking up toward our formation. I could see his muzzle flashes, could calculate his trajectory. I fired first, 2-second burst. The fighter flew through my stream of bullets and shuddered, but he didn't break off, didn't explode, just kept coming, kept firing, and I realized with sudden clarity that he was committed to this attack, would press it home even if it killed him. I fired again, longer burst this time, burning through ammunition I might need later. The fighter was so close now I could see the pilot's face, could see the determination there, could see the exact moment my rounds punched through his windscreen. The FW-190 rolled right and dove, the pilot dead or dying, and the formation's combined fire had driven off the remaining fighters. We'd survived. Again. But at what cost? "Ammunition check," Morrison ordered. His voice was strained now, the calm cracking as the weight of command settled on him. We had a dead crew member, 2 engines compromised, hydraulics failing, and still over 100 miles to go before reaching the English Channel. I checked my counter. 74 rounds remaining between both guns. Not enough for another sustained engagement. If more fighters came, I'd get maybe 1 burst before I was dry. "All gunners, conserve ammunition. Fire only if engaged directly." We crossed into Belgium at 18,000 feet and still descending. The formation had left us behind, unable to slow down enough to match our damaged speed. We were alone now. Exactly the situation every B-17 crew feared. A single bomber, limping home, easy prey for any German fighter that spotted us. The minutes crawled past. Every sound made me flinch, the wind whistling through bullet holes, the irregular rhythm of No. 3 engine, the creak of stressed metal. I kept my eyes moving, scanning the sky, watching for fighters that might be stalking us. But they never came. Maybe the Luftwaffe had shot its bolt for the day. Maybe we'd gotten lucky. Maybe God decided 37 men didn't need to die today, even if one already had. The English Channel appeared ahead, gray and cold and beautiful. We'd made it, crossed into Allied airspace. Survivors. "All hands prepare for emergency landing. Hydraulics are gone, landing gear may not deploy. Tommy, you stay in the ball turret until we're down. If the gear fails, your turret has the best chance of surviving impact." I didn't argue. Morrison was right. If we bellied in, the ball turret would be the only part of the aircraft that might not crush on impact. But that also meant I'd be the only one who couldn't bail out if things went really wrong. I'd be locked in my sphere, helpless, watching the ground rush up. The English coast, the green fields of East Anglia, the familiar landmarks that meant home, meant safety, meant hot food and cold beer and letters from loved ones who didn't understand what we did up here. Morrison brought the B-17 down carefully, nursing the dying engines, compensating for damaged control surfaces. The landing gear lowered, only 2 wheels deployed. The third was stuck up, meaning we'd land on 2 wheels and a wingtip, an almost impossible maneuver even with perfect conditions. I felt the wheels touch down, felt the aircraft settle, start to skid right as the missing wheel threw off our balance. The wingtip hit the runway with a shower of sparks. We were sliding now, spinning, Morrison fighting the controls, trying to keep us from flipping. Then we stopped. Just stopped. In the middle of the runway, canted at an angle, smoking and damaged and intact. We'd made it. I popped the hatch and crawled out of the ball turret for the last time that day. My legs wouldn't hold me, wouldn't support my weight after 5 hours curled in that sphere. I collapsed onto the runway, feeling the solid ground beneath me, feeling the November wind on my face, tasting the sweet English air that didn't have cordite and blood mixed into it. The crew was climbing out, helping each other down from the crippled bomber. Except for Kowalski. We left him where he died, at his station, because moving him felt wrong somehow. He'd manned that turret from Texas to England to Germany and back. He deserved to rest there until the medics came. Morrison walked around the aircraft, examining the damage. I counted 47 holes in the fuselage, probably more I couldn't see. Number 4 engine's cowling was torn away. Number 3 was leaking oil. The tail section looked like someone had used it for target practice. "You got 4 today," Morrison said, standing beside me. 4 confirmed kills. That makes you an ace, Tommy. Ace. The word was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to fill me with pride, with accomplishment. All I felt was tired. "Kowalski?" I asked. "He died doing his job, protected this crew right up until the end. We'll make sure his family knows that." I nodded. Didn't trust myself to speak, because Kowalski's family would receive a telegram, would learn that their son died at 24 years old, 5 miles above a German factory, and no amount of medals or commendations would make that easier to accept. That night, in the barracks, I wrote 4 letters, one to each family of the German pilots I had killed. I didn't mail them, couldn't. They were enemies, and the war wasn't over. But I needed to write them anyway. Needed to acknowledge that those 4 men had names, had mothers, had girls who would receive telegrams just like Kowalski's family would. I wrote about the skill they'd shown, the courage it took to press attacks against a formation of B-17s. I wrote about how quickly it had happened, how they probably didn't suffer. I wrote lies, mostly. Comfortable lies that would have made their deaths seem noble and clean if I could have sent the letters. Then I burned them in the barrack stove and watched the paper curl and blacken. 4 lives reduced to ash, just like the men themselves would be reduced to whatever the Germans did with their dead pilots. 23 more missions after that. 23 more times climbing into that ball turret, spinning through the sky, watching for fighters that wanted to kill me. I shot down 6 more German aircraft before my tour ended. 10 total. 10 men who would never go home, never see their families again, never know peace. The statisticians at Air Corps headquarters said my accuracy rate was exceptional, said I had a natural gift for deflection shooting, for calculating lead and trajectory, said I was one of the best ball turret gunners in the 8th Air Force. But all I remembered were the faces, the moment just before my rounds found their mark, when I could see the German pilot through his canopy, could see him realizing that he was about to die. That moment lasted forever in my memory, even though in reality it was just a fraction of a second. The war ended. I came home, went to college on the GI Bill, got married, had kids, lived the American dream that Kowalski and millions of others had died to protect. But I never forgot the ball turret, never forgot the view from that glass sphere suspended beneath 30 tons of aircraft, watching fighters come and go, watching men die, knowing that my survival depended on being faster, more accurate, more willing to pull the trigger. They called me an ace, said I was a hero, but I was just a gunner who couldn't miss, who calculated trajectories while men died, who went home when better men didn't. That's the truth of war. Not glory, not honor, just mathematics and luck and the burden of survival. I was the gunner who couldn't miss, and I'll carry those 10 kills with me until the day I die.